Hi guys, today we are talking about unit fractions and parts of a whole. So I am looking at your packet. Wednesday, April 15th is the day that we are working on this assignment. So you should have already joined our Zoom meeting from 9 to 9:30 and then worked on a little bit of language arts. If you have questions about this language arts assignment, make sure that you bring those questions to Zoom tomorrow. So this video is about this math section here. So the first thing in your packet says, in your new math book, work on pages 563 to 564, Am I Ready? And my math words. That page looks like this. So your job is to do as many of these questions as you can on your own to get yourself ready for our fractions chapter. This page and the back side. Okay, so this is the My Math Words and the Am I Ready? So you should have worked on this. The next step was to cut out your math vocabulary cards on page 565 and read through them and put them somewhere safe. You might need them again. I suggest that you take this page and you cut out these cards. Remember, these are the cards that have words on them, and then their definitions are on the back. Some of them have a little activity you can do alongside them. Okay, you're going to want to keep these somewhere safe where you can refer back to them. So I would suggest cutting them out and making yourself a little pocket to glue into your learning log, or sticking them in somewhere safe that you're keeping all of your schoolwork during this time, and labeling that envelope with maybe the title of the chapter. You could call it fractions vocabulary cards. Just keep these somewhere safe so that you can refer back to them if you get stuck. So the words are denominator. That's the number on the bottom of every fraction. The bottom number represents the total possible parts. So in this case, that number is 8 because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So the denominator represents the total number of parts or parts possible. Okay, the numerator you'll see is highlighted the number on top. That's the number of pieces that you have. So you can see they shaded in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to represent the number of parts you have. You have 5 of 6 possible. That denominator is 6. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. Equivalent fractions we're going to get into a little bit later, but you'll want to check this one out. And then unit fractions is something we're talking about today. So to start, we could talk about how unit fractions, you can see here I have 1 of 3 parts shaded. So I have 1/3 is how you say this. On the back here, you can see that unit fractions represent the quantity formed by one part when the whole is partitioned into equal parts. So a unit fraction just represents one single thing. A unit fraction is always going to have a numerator of 1. The top number will always be 1. Okay? So those are the two things that you should have done prior to watching this video. Now you found this video by clicking on this link here and clicking on the link labeled unit fractions and parts of a whole. You will need pages 569 is going to be the first page that I'm going to look at. And feel free to follow along with this. The part that you're going to have to do by yourself is this independent practice page on 577. So we're going to walk through these example problems as if we would in class. And then you're only going to do the independent practice on page 577. Okay? So starting with unit fractions, I just told you that a unit fraction always has a numerator of 1. It represents one part of the fraction. So you might be asking, what is a fraction? A fraction is a number that represents an equal part of a whole or equal part of a set. And we're going to continue to get into that as we read through. Okay, so let's just jump into an example and we'll see how we do. So example 1 says, Danny shared his granola bar with Steph. He broke it into 2 equal pieces. Remember, fractions represent an equal part of a set. So the equal pieces is important. Okay, what fraction of the granola bar did each receive? Okay, so we have 2 people, Danny and Steph. He broke 1 granola bar into 2 pieces. You can see it here, 1 granola bar into 2 pieces. So what fraction did they each have? So my first step is to model the whole granola bar. That's this. This is my whole granola bar. We're going to place 2 equal-sized fraction tiles so that the combined length is equal to 1 whole. So these fraction tiles here, they are showing you something that I have here. So this is my 1 whole granola bar. And I'm going to line it up, and I know you don't have these fraction tiles at home, so that's why I'm showing you. I'm going to line up 2 fraction tiles to represent the 2 equal pieces that make up the whole granola bar. So I have 1 piece and 2 pieces, okay? So the reason that I selected these fractions is because I knew that he broke 1 granola bar into 2 equal parts. Remember what I said before is that the denominator represents the total number of parts you have, parts possible. I had 2 parts possible because I took one thing and broke it into 2 parts. So I know that 1 whole is equivalent to 2 halves, 1 half and 2 halves. Okay, we say this half, not 1, 2. Okay, so that's what I modeled here. This fraction tile set is the same as this picture here. Okay, each of these boxes is the same as this guy. So what fraction tiles did you place? I placed 1/2 fraction tiles. Okay, so each person received 1/2. Pretend this one went to Danny and this one went to Steph. So they each received 1/2 of the granola bar. Okay, now getting into our lesson for today, a unit fraction represents 1 equal part of the whole. The top number of a unit fraction is 1. Top number is the numerator. Okay, so the numerator is going to be 1. It represents just 1 equal part. So 1/2 is a unit fraction because its numerator is 1. Okay, example 2. 1 whole is divided into 4 equal parts. So now instead of 2 equal parts, I'm taking my 1 whole and dividing it into 4 equal parts. You can see over here that they did that for you. I also have those pieces here. So I'm going to show you with my fraction tiles. Here's my 1 whole, and I'm going to divide my 1 whole into 4 equal parts. And my one whole, my blue fraction tile is bent, so it's being difficult. But you can see that the length of this 1 whole is the same as if I laid these 4 fraction tiles right next to each other. They're the same. They are equivalent. That means they are equal. Okay, so 1 whole is divided into 4 equal parts. What unit fraction represents 1 equal part of the whole? So I'm talking about just 1 part. So that unit fraction is this piece right here, or it could be any of these pieces, but just one of them, because a unit fraction is just 1 part of the whole. So that unit fraction is going to be 1 part, and then my denominator is the whole was partitioned into 4 equal parts. I took this whole and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So my denominator is 4. I have 1 piece out of 4 possible pieces is that unit fraction. Okay, so the unit fraction is 1/4, or in words we call it 1/4. Okay. Example 3 says Ian made a loaf of bread as his final project in his health class. He divided the loaf, just 1 loaf, equally among some students. Each student received 1/8 of the loaf. Into how many equal parts did Ian cut the loaf? So we're going to use fraction tiles again. Here's my 1. And I'm going to divide that into some amount of 8ths. I know that each student received 1/8 of the loaf. So if I was going to cut this into equal parts, I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4, 5, 6, 7, and, oh no, my short one, Nope, here it is, and 8. So I know those aren't very straight. Let's see. That's a little bit better. Okay, so I count the number of equal parts. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. And each part is an equal sized 1/8, one part of 8 or 1/8. So Ian cut the loaf into 8 equal parts because I have 8 of them here. Okay, so now down here at guided practice, we're going to divide the whole into equal parts. This part is very important. Okay, equal parts is super important because if I have a fraction, they have to be equal parts. If I make them unequal or not the same, it's not representative of a true fraction. So when I'm drawing over here and splitting these bars into equal parts, I want to be as precise as possible, as close to what they're asking me to do as I can. I know it won't be perfect, but we're going to try our best. Okay? So my directions are divide the whole into equal parts, then label each part with its unit fraction. Remember, unit fraction, the numerator is going to be 1. So if I'm going to divide this whole one thing into 2 equal parts, that means my denominator is going to be 2. I'm going to split this into 2 equal parts, or we could say in half. And do you see how I tried to make that as close to equal as possible? It's not perfect, but it's close. Okay? If I'm going to label each part with its unit fraction, this represents 1 part of 2 possible parts. And same with this one, 1 part of 2 possible parts. Okay? This one I'm going to divide into 4 parts. Okay? So this represents 1 part of 1, 2, 3, 4 possible parts. This part represents 1 part of 4. And so do the rest of these. Okay, and then how about 8 equal parts? Be as precise as possible. Okay, so this represents 1 of 8 possible parts. 1 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all of these are going to be 1/8 sized pieces. Okay, so that is your mini lesson on unit fractions. Remember, a unit fraction will always have a numerator of 1. The top number will always be 1. Okay, so moving into this second lesson, I'm combining 2 lessons into one video. So this is the parts of a whole lesson. We're going to walk through these examples, and then you're going to do the independent practice page on your own. Okay, so parts of a whole. Let's go ahead and get started. It says the background paper of Mrs. Dempsey's bulletin board is divided equally. Remember, that's how I know I'm talking about fractions. Divided equally into 4 stripes. What fraction of the bulletin board is green? So looking over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 possible parts, and only this one part here is green. Okay, so using a model, the bulletin board represents one whole. The whole is divided into 4 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, or fourths. Use fraction tiles to model the equal parts of the bulletin board. Trace the tiles, color 1 part green. Okay, so this fraction tile here represents my whole bulletin board. This part here is 1, 2, 3, 4, my 4 different colors up here. Okay, now how many of them are green? Just 1 is green. So I'm going to shade this one in green. Okay, so here you can see I have my 1/4, the part that is green, and the total number of parts. 1 part is green out of 4 possible parts or 4 total colors. The 1 is my numerator, the 4 is my denominator. Again, here are those definitions that we talked about earlier in this video. The numerator tells the number of equal parts being represented. The denominator tells the total number of equal parts. So 1/4 or 1, spell it out, 1/4 of the bulletin board is green, right? I have one equal part that is green out of 4 possible equal parts. Okay? Flip it over. Example 2. This is asking me what fraction of the flag is red. So looking at this flag here, I see I have one red part, then a white part, then another red part. Okay? So over here, they have labeled for you that 2 of the parts are red, but I had 3 possible equal parts. 1, 2, 3 stripes, but 2 of them were red. Okay, so we call that 2/3 is how you say that. TWO, thirds. So 2/3 or 2/3 of the flag is red. Okay, then they ask me, explain why 2/3 is not a unit fraction. Well, now I have a different number as my numerator. Remember, unit fractions, the numerator is always 1. A unit fraction represents one part of the whole. In this case, I have 2 parts of the whole. So here I'm going to write 2/3 is not a unit fraction because, make sure you have that because, the numerator is 2. Okay, and we know that a unit fraction only has a numerator of 1 because a unit fraction represents one part of the whole. Okay, last part here, guided practice. Complete the chart, write a fraction for each part. So looking here, this is my model. I'm going to tell them the number of parts that is yellow and the part that is not yellow. So I can see here, the first thing I want to do is see what my denominator is going to be, the number on the bottom. I know I have 1, 2, 3, 4 possible parts. So that's going to be my denominator. Okay, it's going to be my denominator here also because my fraction model doesn't change. I always have 4 parts in this question. Now, the part that is yellow, I see 1, 2, 3 parts that are yellow. And the parts that are not yellow, I just see 1 that's white. So my parts that are yellow, I have a 3/4. And of this fraction model, 1/4 is not yellow. Here, my last one, number 2. I'm going to label my denominator first. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible parts. So 8 is my denominator. The parts that are yellow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Parts that are not yellow, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So this is 5/8 and 3/8. Your job now is to work on independent practice. Your job today is to do independent practice questions 3 through 19. Okay, so I'm going to write that up here for you. Your job is numbers 3 through 19. Okay, that means you're going to do this entire front side and the entire back side. Okay, make sure that as you work through this worksheet, if there is anything that you get stuck on, you're not sure you're right, you get a little bit confused, that you go ahead and circle that question and bring your questions to Zoom tomorrow. That way I know exactly where I can start with you during our Zoom meeting and we can use our time wisely. Okay, so I will see you then. I hope this helped you.